Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of Well-Tempered Bernadette, a piano's tale of 5 cities. I'm so excited to have you here with us today. I'm your host, Valerie Dueck. I'm a classical pianist who moves all around the globe with my trusty piano called Bernadette. This is a series about movement. We're talking about what it's like to navigate different culture shocks, possibly to move to new cities, and why it's so important to build communities everywhere we go around us, especially as musicians. Each episode, I start by telling you a little bit about someone who's very dear to me, Bernadette, the piano who's accompanied me to 5 cities in 5 countries on 3 different continents. Today, we're going to talk about home. I always have a hard time answering the question, where is home? Usually I answer a place that's somewhere I've lived together with my family and been invested enough to bring Bernadette with me. I first brought Bernadette home while I was living in Ottawa. And since then, she and I have called Ottawa home on 4 separate occasions. She's done a lot of moving in and out of buildings since then. And in episode 2, when we were talking with Phoebe and Adam Chenke about moving to Kazakhstan, we learned that it's really important to be prepared for the unexpected. Moving a piano into a new place is just like that. When we first moved into our new home, a house of our own in Ottawa, it was a bit of a challenge finding the right fit for Bernadette. As a new homeowner, I was super excited to renovate the special space I wanted to put her into. We decided we would make the basement her own. We put in warm flooring and soft lighting and painted the walls a cozy, warm color. After doing all of those renovations, we discovered that the staircase was 4 centimeters too low going into the basement to bring Bernadette down there. Well, the piano movers said, no problem. We can just build a new entranceway with a new staircase into the basement. Bernadette can have her own suite. She can have her self-sufficient entrance going in that way. Or if you don't like that solution, we can just cut a hole in your dining room floor on the main floor and lower into the basement that way. Well, as much as I was excited by the innovative ideas these folks had, I wasn't sure that it was such a good idea to start cutting holes. So we did end up knocking down a few closets, and Bernadette ended up with kind of a small, cluttered, crowded space on the main floor instead. Home doesn't always start out as home. There is always a period of adjustment when we're trying to find the right fit into our new environment. And in this series, we're talking to musicians who are moving around and trying to find a fit for themselves wherever they go. We hope that that doesn't have to involve cutting a hole in anyone's floor. Our guest today is the extraordinarily gifted, mesmerizing soprano, Joyce El-Khoury. She is well-versed in the art of fitting in all around the world as a traveling opera singer. She has not only championed lesser-known roles with better-known composers like Donizetti and Liszt, but the great roles like Liu, Violetta, Tatiana, and a handful of Tudor queens. In fact, she has been equated to the queens of opera themselves, Maria Callas and Montserrat Caballé, and rightfully so. Joyce has performed all over the world, like the Royal Opera House, the Met, Toronto's own Canadian Opera Company, and we last met up in St. Gallen in Switzerland. And she is joining us here today from Toronto in Canada. Joyce, it is so great to have you here with us today. Thank you for coming to visit with Bernadette and me.
Hi, thank you so much. So great to see you.
It's great to have you. So I'm just going to take a quick moment to remind our viewers that if you'd like to put some comments in the chat, questions for Joyce for later on in the show, or even if you're watching the replay, you can put those questions in and we'll get back to you later. And please let us know where in the world you are watching from. So Joyce, do you remember the first time you met Bernadette?
The first time I met Bernadette was in Ottawa when I was coming over to your house to prepare for the OSM competition, the Orchestre Symphonique de Montréal competition. I think it was 2003 or
Oh, wow.
would it have been 2003 or 4? Something
That
like
sounds
that.
about right. I think I got Bernadette in 2004, so it would have been close
Okay.
to that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we worked on all the repertoire, mainly on Bernadette. And yeah, and I think that's where we really, I mean, you were my piano teacher around the same time, which
That's
I'm
right.
extremely sorry about.
You were a fabulous student. You
But
had such beautiful phrasing. It was so easy to teach you.
yeah, my phrasing was great. My attendance would not have been so good. And I think that's where it was the OSM competition because we both went to Montreal together to do that. And I think that's where we bonded. So it was my bond with Bernadette and my bond with you. And here we are, I don't know how many years later, 15
We
years.
won't count. Let's not count. That's great. And so where would you say, like, you've moved around so much, you've lived in a lot of places too.
Mm-hmm.
Where would you say is your home?
You know, just like you said, you have a hard time answering that question. So do I. I right now I'm in Toronto. I have a home here, and all my things are here, and my partner's here, and it's great. But when I say home, I'm referring to Ottawa because that's where my parents are and where my sisters live. On the road one day. I was in I love these little antique shops where they have all these little knickknacks that you really don't need. I love that stuff. And there was this little, a pot, what do you call it? A pot holder? Like
Oh
a,
yeah,
what do you call that?
the
The thing
cloth
you
one? I
hold,
don't know. It's the
the
pot
thing
holder.
that protects you from
The
anyway.
trivet, I think. I don't know.
I don't know. But I saw one and it was embroidered. Home is where my mom is. And
Aw.
I gave that to her and she has it hanging in the kitchen. And that's really true. It's so Ottawa's home, yeah.
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 Oh, and that makes a lot of sense because you have a lot of memories that you've built up from that time.
Exactly.
So, I know that you moved to Canada around the age of 6, I think it was,
Exactly.
and that was from Lebanon. Do you ever think of Lebanon as home?
This is a really deep question and answer because yes, it's the ultimate home. It's the home that has the deepest meaning for me. And because it's where I was born, it's where my people are from. It's my, Arabic is my first language. In fact, French, I learned French also in Lebanon, so but it has a kind of a feeling of real longing. It's home from a distance, but there's like a pull. Even though I haven't spent that much time there, I have in recent years because I've gone on holiday last year with my father, and the year before I was singing there, and I've sung there quite a bit now. But there's this constant pull toward Lebanon. And so home, when I think of home in Lebanon, it's much more complicated than where my things are. I still have family there. But it's really this nostalgic, profound ache to be back there. And 2 summers ago, actually, my cousin Marilyn was getting married and she decided to get married in Lebanon. And this was the event for the family. The entire family, most of us are in Canada now, in Ottawa. Everybody went over there for the wedding. And so it was the first time in 30 years, I kid you not, that we were all reunited in Lebanon at the same time. And Marilyn's wedding is what gave us the gift of that reunion. And it was like, I can't even describe to you what that felt like. And as much as I love Canada, I'm so proud to be Canadian. There's nothing like the homeland, you know?
Yeah,
So
that's beautiful. And so amazing to have that opportunity to gather there together after so much time had passed. How incredible.
yeah.
Wow. So with your role as an opera singer, you have traveled so very much. You've moved around, you constantly moving. I'm not even sure how many times you have roles in a year, but you're traveling around so much. And I'm wondering, how do you bring that sense of home with you? What do you do? Do you have like a routine that you get to when you get to a new city or a new hotel? Or how do you make home in a new place?
First thing is, if I can avoid a hotel, I will,
Okay.
because I really enjoy getting up, making my own coffee, not in those stupid little hotel machines. And I like making my own breakfast. And I like having a kitchen. Not that I'm a cook or anything. I'm really a terrible cook, but I like having the option.
Right.
So that's number one. But usually when I am booking accommodations for a place, I always try to make it walking distance from the theater,
Mhm.
so that my work home travel space is the same, so that I have that kind of cushion of comfort around my stay there.
Yeah.
And I don't like public transportation. I never have, so I prefer to walk. And when I arrive in a place, I normally unpack immediately. I have all my hangers because I need a lot, and I bring them with me most of the time.
And you don't
I
forget them there.
no, I do not. So I unpack, I get everything kind of set up. I go to the grocery store, I come back, the fridge is stocked, and I'm all set. And then I usually just crash and fall asleep for hours. But
Right.
that's kind of that's how I set up and how I make sure I'm sane. Mental
Hmm.
health is so important, you know, and I think singers have to be so aware of what it is that they need on the road, um, just to have a sense of stability, even if you don't know where your surroundings, if you don't know anybody, if your environment inside your apartment is comfortable for you, then it's means it's priceless.
Yeah, that's where
Yeah.
you get your sense of belonging.
Yeah.
I loved what you said about walking because for me that's a really important part of getting to know a city as well. If I can avoid being in a car or taking public transit, if I can walk or get there by foot, that to me that's kind of step number one too in kind of discovering that environment around me.
Absolutely.
So when you're on these work trips, let's call them, do you ever feel lonely? Do you ever feel isolated?
No, I know I'm rare. I know a lot of my colleagues do,
Yeah.
and it's perfectly normal to feel lonely, but I don't. I have a really vivid inner life, inner life in here, and I thrive when I'm on my own because I don't have anybody's energy to deal with. And I can concentrate on what I need to do and what I need to accomplish. Of course, I miss my family, you
Mhm.
know, I miss my loved ones. And I can't even imagine what it was like for people who traveled before FaceTime and Skype and Zoom
Right.
and all the things, right? So that's of comfort, but no, I'm pretty good on my own.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I think that works, like you say, that really works to your advantage. Now, you mentioned about your rich inner life. I want to ask about that next. So, I want to know a little bit about how you prepare for a role. So, in our other episodes, we've been talking about what it's like to redirect your skills, or maybe some people use the word reinventing yourself. And so, I imagine there's some component of that that might come into play when you're learning a role. Can you talk to me about a recent role that you've learned and how you approached it as an opera singer?
Um, that's a really good question. Every role for me is different, and I approach them differently. You know, of course, I have a method to learning a role, right? And it's text, music, background, historical references, you know, all that kind of nerdy study that happens first
Mhm.
before I even sing a note. Because I don't like singing something that has where I don't know yet where it's going musically, and then I get it in my throat, kind of. I don't like that. But everything is different, and psychologically, it's really important for me to examine the role. In fact, that's generally what I work on first. That has a lot to do with whether or not I accept a role, is if I can connect with it emotionally and mentally. And I find that every role brings something different out of me, but there's always me. It's always me in there. Um, I've never had, it doesn't come naturally to me to say, this is a character here, and she's supposed to be like this. And these are the rules for her, and this is how she's perceived, and I have to make myself that. That is, for me, that is just no, I don't. That, I think, to me, that's wrong.
Okay.
And so I always try to find myself in the character. And I worked with my acting teacher, Stephen Wadsworth, who's a brilliant director. Um, we worked together when I was a young artist at the Met, and he teaches a very specific technique to help the individual find themselves and their own experiences in the character. And it's a very specific method. And that's what I do. And so I find myself kind of shifting the way I do things in different roles because they require something different psychologically. So I tap into my own experience. You know, I'll take something out of this drawer and something out of this drawer. And I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah, yeah, it totally does. So if we're looking at, what we ordinarily think of as a role that Joyce would play, what's something that's kind of skirted that maybe thing that really made you tap into other elements of yourself that you're maybe not always pulling out so often in other roles?
you know, my most recent role was Iphigénie en Tauride.
Hmm.
And that was my last role before this whole thing. And that was a role I never thought I would do. I mean, ever, because it's on the low side. It's done by sopranos, but mainly by mezzos. And it
Okay.
was offered to me. She's very, it's Greek tragedy. And so it requires some dramatic, skills and wow. But she was challenging for me because the roles that I've played more often than not have been, like Violetta, like Mimi, really feminine characters who are courtesans or, are finding their way in society. Now, Iphigenie is a priestess, a Greek priestess, and she's, she has it's the whole psychological thriller thing going on there with her psychology and her looking for her brother, and that really made me not only vocally find a new color in my voice because it was a different fach in a way. I had to assert my femininity in a different way.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah,
From
yeah.
the pictures, it looked like an incredible production. It looked really, really fascinating. I wish I could have seen that. It looked
Yeah,
great.
it was interesting. It was really, really great. And that was a beautiful experience in Stuttgart. I loved my time there. It's
Oh,
really great.
well, hopefully you'll be back there soon.
Yes, hopefully.
You're not too much time. So I've shared quite a few stories about what it's like moving Bernadette all around the world. And I'm curious to know what it's like moving with or traveling with your instrument.
Um, well, luckily it's portable and it goes everywhere that I go. So that's a blessing and a curse.
Right.
right? Because it's very sensitive. And the hardest thing is, of course, concerts where the rehearsal periods are shorter, right? And so, especially going overseas, if if I'm going to London and I have a concert 2 days after, I'm still jet lagged and still dry from the flight. And but I use this mask called humidifier.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yes, I've heard of it, but tell us more.
It really helps because you put it on the flight. It's this clear thing, and covers around. We're talking masks. It's so trendy to talk about right now, but this is before any of this happened.
Yeah, right.
And so it kind of recycles your own air and kind of keeps the humidity in your throat. Now, some people like it, some people don't, but that's something that I use if I know that I'm going to go and I have to sing right away. And I also have this like a puffy thing. It's not a puffy thing. It's you put saline in it. Yes, thank you. You put saline in it, and it just coats your throat. So those are two tools that I use that I find really help. And also, when I'm not traveling, I use that vaporizer. But sleep. I have to sleep, right, and hydrate. And I don't drink on flights. I know a lot of people do. But it's really just about self-care, right? I mean, because these two little cords they're so sensitive.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, maybe the whole industry is going to sell out of humidifiers after that for the
that endorsement. This was not sponsored, by the way.
This is not a sponsored episode. So I'm wondering, so you were mentioning you had Iphigenie just coming up before this, and where are you heading next? What does your horizon look like? What's coming up?
Well, unfortunately, everything since March has been canceled, and everything is canceled now. It looks like until January. In January, I'm scheduled to go back to the COC to do Michaela and Carmen. So as far as I know, that's on. So hopefully that's going to happen. But at the end of August 29th, I'm going to upstate New York to the Phoenicia Voice Festival to do a Tosca performance, one performance, and they're doing it in a drive-in setting to, that's the solution that they came up with for the current situation. And so we're going to be projected on these gigantic screens, and people are going to be in their cars. So I'm really looking forward to that next month.
Yeah. So you're going to wait. So is that going to be live, or is it going to be like pre-recorded and they drive in and they watch it? How's that?
Live. They're going to drive in as like they're watching an unusual performance.
Yeah.
And we're going to be on stage and projected, and they can watch us on the stage and watch us on the screens.
Amazing. And like, what about the orchestra? What's going to happen with that?
I'm not sure where they're going to put them.
Okay.
It's an outside thing. I think they might be behind us. I'm not sure of the setup, to be honest.
Each play from their own vehicle.
No, they're going to be on stage or under. It's socially distanced, of course. I think it's reduced.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it's brilliant that they came up with this during this climate, and I think people need it. People need to go out and listen to music.
Everyone drive down there. Get your tickets. Go watch Joyce. It'll be worth it. Little holiday.
I never thought that my first Tosca would be for a drive-in, but I think it's going to be cool.
Will they be serving milkshakes?
I don't know.
Yeah, we'll have to check it out and see what kind of snacks they've got there. It sounds really cool, Joyce. I wish I could watch. I wish I could be there. So I'm just going to have a little look here at the chat to see where we've got people watching from today. So we've got Jen watching from Thailand. Hi, Jen. Thank you so much for watching. It's so great to see you here. And Phoebe is watching us from Scotland. Phoebe was on the show last week with Adam. She's got a question for you. She said, she's wondering, how did Ottawa feel different when you returned? And did something surprise you about that?
I assume that once I returned home from travels
I think she's meaning, yeah, from or maybe when you've lived somewhere else and you're going back to visit your family for longer periods of time.
Well, I find that every time I go to Ottawa, it's different. There's always something new. There's some new development. There's, Ottawa's been changing quite a bit and really, really fast. And in fact, if I go to Ottawa and my sisters want to go to dinner, they mention a restaurant I've never heard of. It's kind of bizarre. It's like home, no more home to me. Whither must I wander? Everything kind of changes. But it has that feel of small townness, because everywhere I go, I know somebody, I recognize somebody, whether it's from the Lebanese church community or whatever. But it always feels good to come home, and I like the simplicity of Ottawa.
Yeah,
and it's comforting when I get back there.
Of course, that's so beautiful. So we've got a few hellos from a cousin Patrick Friesen in Victoria, British Columbia. Patrick, it's really great to see you watching. Thank you so much for being here. And Jason, who's out in Sydney, says, what city have you visited that has felt most like home? But he asks a really deep question later on that I'm interested in is, do you see music performance changing in any way post-COVID? This could be a whole new episode here, but do you have any thoughts to either of those questions?
Hi, Jason. What was the first question again?
He said, what city have you visited that felt the most like home?
Oh, I felt really at home two places, in Amsterdam and in London. Amsterdam, I worked there twice, and both times it was 3-month engagement. So I had time to really, absorb the city. And I just loved how anything goes in Amsterdam. You're just so free to be yourself, and it felt so great, and I love it. And that would be my European city where I would live. London, it also, because I've worked there a lot, feels like home. And of course, because of the English language and the similarities in culture, it was really easy for me to settle in London, and I love London. I just don't like the rain.
I hear it's raining there today.
Big surprise. Yeah, that's a really big question. And yes, it has already changed. Even during this period where performances haven't been happening, as I'm sure you've seen, singers, performers have now added a bunch of other things to their resumes. They're now teaching more. They have more online tech skills.
Yes.
They are hosting talk shows and interviewing their colleagues, So I think the things that were lacking have been heightened. And I think that's really great for our industry, because now everybody's had to think outside the box, which I think was needed in the industry anyway. Yes. So in that respect, it's really great. Now, there are performances of La Traviata going on right now in Madrid with reduced audience, reduced orchestra, and the singers are on stage completely socially distanced. So they're in these boxes, they have to stay in their box. Now, that's a really unusual way to perform, right? But it's also, I think they are amazing for having had the courage and organization and grit, to put this on and make this happen. And I think they had something like 24 performances with a variety of casts, and the demand was there and the audience went. So what that tells us is that what we are doing on stage is so important and people need it. Absolutely. So it's now up to the audiences, to the theaters to come up with creative ways to present performance. Yeah. But it won't ever be the same, even though I think we will get back to performing as we know it, but everybody has a different awareness of things now. And so I don't know if that answers the question, but.
I think it does. And I think And I think part of it is asking questions and asking until we ask the right question. Because once we ask the right question, we will have the answer. I'm convinced of that. So it's just a matter of opening up and embracing this huge horizon that we have right now, in my opinion, and putting the questions into that space until we come up with a really good solution.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on. I just wanted to acknowledge that we have Tamara watching from London, Lorraine watching from home, and Hannah watching from here in Geneva, and Hassett.
Great.
Thank you guys so much for watching. So Joyce, one final question for me before wrapping this question period. If you could perform anywhere in the world, where would that be?
Lebanon.
Tell me more.
I know. Is it just, it's, yeah. When I sing there, there's no feeling like it.
I love it. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So one of the first things, you already mentioned this, that we worked together. One of the first things we did together was getting ready for that OSM competition. And we worked in my little room with Bernadette. I remember that was a very hot room. You were so young and you absolutely blew the jury away with your performances. You sang something by Stephen Gelman, who's an Ottawa composer. We, I think, did some pieces from Les Nuits d'été. And of course, you sang the Ave Maria scene from Otello. So can you introduce what we're about to hear next?
Yes, so what you are about to see is a performance from Moscow with the Moscow Philharmonic. And on the podium is my dear, dear friend, Ryan McAdams. This was in May of 2018. This was part of a huge concert that we did. I sang a gazillion things and it was me in the orchestra and Ryan and a beautiful audience in an amazing theater. And as you said, this is the Ave Maria from Otello in the last act where Desdemona is saying her nightly prayers.
Grazia, eletta fra le spose, le vergini sei tu, sia benedetto il frutto, oh benedetta, di tue materne viscere, Gesù. Ave Maria. Nell'ora della morte. Amen.
Joyce, thank you. That was so incredibly powerful, and what an extraordinary performance we got to witness through the magic of video. So thank you so much for sharing that with us today. It's
Thank
very
you.
meaningful.
Thank you.
And what an honor it has been to have you on the show today, talking about Ottawa and what it's like to create a sense of home around yourself. Thank you so much for being here together with Bernadette and me.
Thank you. It's been so much fun talking to you. Thank you.
It's been a real treat. And a special thank you to Ivan Plazačić, our digital advisor, for all his expertise and making sure that you can hear me when my lips are moving. And of course, I'd like to thank Bernadette, my special co-host. That brings us to the end of episode 3. If you've enjoyed today's episode, you could visit my Facebook page, Valerie Dueck Piano, and get a chance to hear Bernadette a little bit, where I've posted a live performance today of a piece called Maps of Europe. It's a piece by Ottawa composer Christine Duncan, and it's from a larger work called The Light That Remains, which is a book by Ottawa author Lise Champagne talking about the desperate tales of refugees. And in this particular story, Maps of Europe, it's a short story about 2 Armenian sisters who are writing to each other a year after their separation, and they are never to hear from each other again. We've got 2 more great shows coming up this summer. Up next, we head to Oslo, and that's where Bernadette had a very short layover. We're going to be visiting with Paul Prefontaine and David Stewart, who are violinists who've been living in Bergen, Norway for the last 9 years, playing with the Bergen Philharmonic Orchestra, and they just a few weeks ago just relocated back to Canada. So we're going to be getting in touch with them and see how they're holding up. And that live interview will be here on my YouTube channel on Saturday, August the 8th. So you can subscribe to that channel, and on right on the same page, there's the previous episodes that we've had, episodes 1 and 2, and the future episodes that are coming up. There's also some live recordings of Bernadette and some other informational materials about the series. So if you want other details, you can also go to my website at valeriedueck.com. So a very special thank you to our viewers today who have been joining us from literally all around the world. It's so great to have you here. And until next time, stay tuned, Stay well tempered. See you soon.